Hi everyone. So on today's episode, we're gonna have a special guest all the way from UK, and I invited her for this interview because she has an amazing success story in the UK as an IMG, and she's a really, really good friend of mine. She's also a former med school roommate for 2 years and a senior to me, and amazing friend. So let's say hello to Dr. Francis Ledesma. Hi, Francis.
Hi.
So do you want to briefly introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Frances. I lived with Sarah for 2 years in Manila in med school, and I currently live and work now in London. I've been doing that since 2018. I moved here 2018, I think. I think.
Yeah.
um, I've been working here for about almost 3 years now. So yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So thank you for the introduction. And then now we're gonna proceed to our first question. So how has your journey been since the year you graduated until the time where you got a non-training job?
I think it was pretty smooth because I initially, I originally came here in early 2017 as part of the internship elective program. And the consultant in Manila was the one who recommended that I try London instead of going back to South Korea. So I went to London. It was really great. It was really good fun. And a lot of the people I worked with there were asking me why I didn't just stay. And I didn't think at that point it was a possibility until I read up on it. And then I was like, it's a good option. So why not? So after graduation, I still studied for the boards back home. I took the boards in September or October 2017, and then a month later, I flew out to London to take PLAB 1 exams, um, which I thought was good also because I had all those months of board exam prep, which, if you think about it, like the knowledge is essentially translatable. It's just a difference of guidelines, which, is minimal if you think about it, because the pathophysiology is all the same, the genes are all the same. So it wasn't so difficult preparing for the first PLAB exam. And then I went back home. I moonlighted for a bit, um, doing emergency med for a couple of months, and then went back to London for my PLAB 2 exam about 2 months later. So it was quite
Mm-hmm.
quick
So
to
you took PLAB one
transition.
in November, right?
Yes, I
And
took
then
PLAB 1 in November.
and then
I
PLAB two
took
you took it.
February
Okay.
or March,
Mm-hmm.
one of those things. I think March, sorry. I took it
Yeah, yeah.
like in March. So it was just, yeah, 2, 3 months. And then I was already taking the second exam. And then I had to wait another month
Mm-hmm.
to see the results of that, which I had passed. And then I
Mm-hmm.
registered to the GMC right after and then
Okay.
started applying for jobs.
Okay. Do you remember how many jobs you had to apply to at the time?
It was a lot. Uh, I think because I was a new graduate to begin
Yeah.
with, and I did have experience, but it was quite minimal in hindsight. Like I had been doing emergency med for 6 to 8 months when I
Okay.
started applying for jobs. But I think that it's really confidence that really carries you through a lot of the interviews. So you just,
Okay.
if you know it, you know it. But I applied to like I don't know,
Hundreds?
50, 60 jobs.
Oh,
No,
okay,
I
okay.
didn't say 100.
All right.
Around 50, I would
Okay.
say 50 to 60. I got offers for interview for about 8 to 10 of them.
Okay, nice.
And then I got job offers for about 6 of them.
Okay.
I only
That's pretty
obviously
good.
accepted one. Yeah.
Okay.
Wasn't too bad.
Yeah.
And I started my first job in October that year.
Wow. So technically less than a year since the time you took your PLAB one, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah, yeah.
I got registered with the GMC in June that year. I started applying as I was doing my registration, and then June, July. yeah, about like 4 months.
Okay.
After
And
that, I was already starting.
okay. And as for like just for the people who do not know the background of like the difference between non-training job and a training job, could you explain what the differences are?
Non-training jobs are essentially, um, so you do have the same workload as a training and a non-training person. You're
Okay.
doing the same jobs. The only difference is with a non-training person, you have to achieve your own competencies and get signed off on certain things and doing the admin work of the paperwork yourself
Mm-hmm.
rather than with training jobs. There's a set path. There are certain forms you need to fill up, and that in itself is to help you achieve the competencies you need to move up to the next level. So they think of non-training as service provision more of, whereas training, you really do have to get certain competencies to
Mm-hmm.
level up your training. But at the end of the day, I think there's very minimal differences, especially depending on where you work.
Okay.
I was given about the same opportunity as a training person. I had a logbook. I had annual meetings with my appraisers where
Mm-hmm.
you get like feedback on how you did the entire year, whether you reached your job goals, etc., etc. So
Okay. How about in terms of specialty? Do you get to choose which specialty you want to work in as a non-training job or a training job as well?
I mean, for a training job, it depends because I think your first 2, 3 years of core training or basic training, whether it's IM or surgery or emergency med or anything like that, you
Mm-hmm.
have to rotate through a certain set of specialties. So in that regard, you don't really get to choose. You're given options which you're able to rank. But then depending on how you did in the interviews and how you did with your portfolio,
Mm-hmm.
of course, the higher points or the more points you have, the higher you rank, the better options you get. Whereas with non-training, you can essentially apply to any job that's available, and it's usually going to be a specialty job. So my first job was in a district general hospital, which is a small hospital,
Mm-hmm.
and that was just general surgery. So it encompassed all levels of surgery. There wasn't much in terms of differentiation in specialties because it was a small hospital.
Yeah.
And then moving on to a larger hospital, I moved to a
Mm-hmm.
major trauma center.
Mm-hmm.
I had to rotate through vascular surgery, hepatobiliary surgery. Um, yeah. So
Okay.
I was able to
So
go through the different specialties.
okay, and from moving on from what you just shared, what do you think are the major differences in terms of healthcare system, like comparing from Philippines and UK? Because remember you said one of the hardest things adjusting there was the fact that the system is
Mhm.
very different.
Yeah, I think um, the expectations are different also. The level of competence and knowledge is very different because the way they do their training here is very much competency based,
Okay.
and very much how do I say this? They give equal importance to academics, research, and the clinical side of things, whereas, in the Philippines, we're very much clinical rather
Yeah.
than anything else. So I think that was a bit of an adjustment to be able to have to delve into doing more academic things, more research papers, publications, things like that. Whereas in Manila, you just do the job, you
Yeah.
pass your exams, and then you keep just doing the job. So it was it's more of a balance here between academics, clinical obligations, and of
Mhm.
course your interests if you have special interests in certain things. um yeah.
Okay. All right. So let's move on to the next question. So from being in a non-training job, I guess you started in the district hospital and then moved on to a larger hospital, and then you ended up landing in a training job in vascular surgery. Which big congratulations again, because I remember you
Thanks.
mentioned they only picked like 7 people and you were one of them. So which is amazing. So, how was that journey for you from going from non-training job to a training job? How did it look? How did that look like?
I think I underestimated it the first time around. So the first time I applied was after a year of doing a non-training job, and I really
Mm-hmm.
thought I'm clinically competent. I have the support of my consultants, and they were all saying I should just get into training already instead of dawdling around in a non-training job.
Mm-hmm.
And so I applied the first time in 2019, and that was such a huge shock for me because I didn't realize how much of a high stakes um, situation it is in terms of
Mm-hmm.
people are really vying for slots, especially in surgery where the competition ratios are ridiculous. Like for every one job, you
I
have
bet. Yeah.
4 to 5 applicants. So it gets really competitive and you have to maximize as many points as you can, which I didn't realize at the time. And when I did my interview, I didn't really prepare for my interview also at the time. I thought I'll just wing it,
Okay.
which obviously didn't end well.
Uh-huh.
So I didn't get a training job after the first time I applied. And I was like really devastated by that. But I think that kind of just made me rethink
Uh-huh.
my strategy and
Yeah.
like what is it that I lacked? What were the
Yeah.
things I
Yeah.
should have improved on, or like, I should have practiced for my interview more,
Mm-hmm. What were
which
the
I didn't
requirements
do.
for like the training job that you were applying to?
So it really depends on the specialty because some specialties will, put more of a premium on certain aspects. But generally, for surgery at least, there was
Mm-hmm.
a commitment to surgery part. So you had to show evidence about the number of cases you've done that had to be
Okay.
signed off by a consultant, surgical courses that you attended,
Mm-hmm.
whether you had taken the MRCS, which is one of the surgical exams.
Mm-hmm.
There was a part about teaching qualifications because doctors have to be teachers also. So
Okay.
did you attend this course? Are you participating in a local teaching or a national
Oh.
teaching
Mm-hmm.
program? There was another part on publications, whether you were published as a first author or second author
Wow.
or a
Mm-hmm.
co-author. So depending on like which authorship and how many publications you've done, that gives
Yeah.
you a certain number
More
of points.
chances.
There was
Mm-hmm.
one also on your postgraduate qualifications. Like,
Okay.
did you have an MD with a research paper or do you have a PhD? So all these things really count for something. Or like, have you been involved in an audit or a presentation?
Mm-hmm.
What level did you present? Is it national, regional, international?
Mm-hmm.
So it was it's very competitive. And
Yeah.
so I realized at that point I needed to up my game.
Okay.
So I focused on the things that I was scored really low in, which was the presentations, the audits, the
Mm-hmm.
publications. So within the span of a year, I
Okay.
really worked hard to get all of that done. So I got published in 4 publications. I think
Nice.
one was in the Lancet.
Okay.
So
Wow.
it also depends which publication you get published in.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
I've done like several loops of audits.
Mm-hmm.
I'm presenting, well, hopefully we'll present my abstract presentation in Copenhagen this October.
Yay.
Uh, so it's like,
Exciting. Uh-huh.
it was a good wake up call the first time I
Yeah.
applied
Mm-hmm.
because it made me realize I really needed to sort things out.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So after you upped your game, you reapplied in last year?
I reapplied last year because training applications are usually towards the end of the year. So, like October, November, they'll open
Okay.
applications. And you're meant to start in August or October the following year. So, they long list you first based on your CV, your portfolio, whether you reach a certain number of points.
Okay.
And they always have a cutoff. This year it was, sorry, last year it was 47 points for surgery
Out
out of
of
72.
okay. Wow.
The year before that it was 42 points, I think.
Okay. So
So
they
every
made it
year
harder.
the number of points goes up. Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
Because they have to trim down the numbers because
Mm-hmm.
if you make it through that long listing process, then you get an interview offer.
Mm-hmm.
And then the interview is 4 stations.
Mm-hmm.
One is a leadership station where
Okay.
they'll give you a statement and then you have to explain like what exactly does being a leader mean to you? What are your examples of you demonstrating leadership qualities, etc., etc. The second was a management station where they'll give you a management kind of scenario,
Mm-hmm.
and the other two are clinical stations. So
Mm,
you have four stations. This year it was four stations, and it was 5 minutes each, so it was only 20 minutes
okay.
the whole interview. And when it's done, it's done. You can't say anything anymore. So
So this whole thing
it's
is like a requirement for the application for the surgery, right? Yeah. Okay.
yeah. So it's like a process. So if you have enough points from your CV or your
Uh-huh.
portfolio, you get offered a job interview. And then
Oh,
after the
okay.
job interview, you get like a certain number of points.
Mm-hmm.
So everything is points based. And then if you reach the number of points,
Mm-hmm.
um, they'll collate everything and they'll rank everyone.
Wow.
And if you rank high enough, then you get the job that you ranked first.
Mm-hmm.
So you get ranked. You're also given the option to rank all the available jobs
Mm-hmm.
um, in every part of the UK. So that includes Wales, Scotland,
Wow.
Northern Ireland.
Uh-huh.
So this year there were only 721 jobs.
Wow. But yeah, so much congratulations for making it finally after
Thanks.
all the hard work you put in. I was really happy for you when you shared the joy
I was
and the
in shock.
happiness. Oh, really?
Yeah. I
That's a
wasn't
big joy.
expecting to do so well, but I think I learned my lesson
Uh-huh.
last year, especially where I got all the points I needed. And then I also prepped for the interview. So
Uh-huh.
there's like scenarios you can run through. And I did that for about a week and a half to 2 weeks with friends, colleagues, even my other half. Um, and
Hello,
we would just
David.
run through scenarios, and I
Mhm.
would make sure that there are certain keywords that you have to say to make sure that you're hitting all the points, because again, it's all a point system. So if you
Okay.
say the certain word or refer to something
You get a point.
that they want you to, you get a point for that.
Mm.
um, so I scored 100% on the interviews this time around.
Wow.
I was really
Congratulations.
happy about that.
Yeah, so proud of you. And I mean, you technically discussed while you talked about all this journey, but other than having that struggle of applying, like failing once and then being successful on the second round because you knew what to fix on, any other
Yeah.
struggles you encountered during the journey, like from graduating med school until the journey now? Like, what were your biggest struggles and how did you deal with them?
I think a lot of it is just working in a different system. And it can be really stressful because the expectations are different,
Mm-hmm.
especially when they recognize that you are quite competent, but you're taking on a lot of responsibilities. People just make you step up sometimes out of your comfort zone, which is good in a way because you really push to do certain things that you didn't think you were capable of. But at the same time, it gets really, really dicey and uncomfortable,
Mm-hmm.
especially if I'm doing a surgery and the consultant's like, we'll do this one together, and then you do the next one as the main or
Uh-huh.
as the lead. And it's like,
Uh-huh.
oh,
I still
put
remember
me
the
on the spot.
time. I still remember the time you told me that you did a laparotomy like by
That
yourself and you were like so happy and I was like so excited about like
was
everything.
insane.
Yeah, it was very exciting because
um,
it wasn't long after you went to UK actually when you had that experience.
yeah,
Yeah, so that was really
it
amazing.
was nice. It was good.
Yeah.
I think also because I started doing a master's program while I was working full time. So making that kind of time management a priority and
Mm-hmm.
being able to deliver both academically and clinically. So that was also very, very difficult.
Challenging.
And I'm still
Mm-hmm.
doing my master's.
Oh,
So
is it
yeah,
a master's in
I think it's all worth it. Hmm?
master's in
Trauma science.
Okay. And you made the decision to do that as well because?
Well, it was my like because we working in a major trauma center, it really
Yeah.
piqued my interest, and at the same time, like it's also something that at one point I would have to do because they do prioritize higher education.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and a lot of the consultants that I work with are PhDs, and they have research of interest. And so if I was going to go in that direction, I figured why not do something of that
Mm-hmm.
would really be interesting for me, and that was doing trauma, and doing trauma in like situations like Doctors Without Borders, things like that. So I thought that would be a good idea and a good background to have,
Mm-hmm.
going into something with full knowledge, well,
Yeah. That's
90%
true.
knowledge of what's expected and what you need to do. So yeah,
Yeah. That's great. Yeah, that's true. Continuous learning, I guess. There's no end to learning in medicine. So,
especially if you're a doctor. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Doesn't end, right? So, the last question I have for you is, what are the things you're grateful for? And I guess advice to a lot of med students right now who are also aiming for and looking forward to move to the UK after their medical school and move their career to the UK, what would be your advice to them? I guess. Yeah.
I think I'm really grateful for having a really good support system that, even when I felt like quitting, they were like, it's not yet time to quit. So I think that was really helpful. And just having the drive and the ambition to kind of get what you want. And not, yeah, not quitting. I think that for anyone who wants to try and move here, I think you have to do your research. And I don't mind getting asked questions. Like I get messages all the time asking for help. But I can't give you any help if you don't know what the process is like. And there's so much information online. So when
Mm-hmm.
I first started this like journey, um, no one I knew had done it before. So I didn't know anything. I didn't know who to talk to.
Mm-hmm.
I did my research. There's so much materials online, and if there's a specific question, there's always someone who's able to answer it. But for the most part, everything you need to know um, is all just by doing
Online.
research, and yeah,
Yeah, I
and
agree.
knowing what kind of path you're looking to do. Like, do you want to go more into academics? There is information on that, and it's just being smart about how to obtain it. And I think a lot of people take that for granted because they would rather just ask someone. And it's not very helpful because you obviously aren't sure, or you obviously aren't aware of the context in which you're
Yeah.
asking these things. So keep yourself informed first before reaching out. I think that's more important than anything, because I can't answer basic questions like, is it difficult? And I was like, I don't know. It depends on you.
Yeah.
um, I can't answer that for you.
Yeah.
Like, was it
It
easy?
varies
And I
per
was like,
person.
again, I can't answer. Exactly. Like, it's a
Yeah.
case to case basis. So I
Mm-hmm.
can't answer those kinds of questions like, was it easy? Was it difficult? What were the costs involved? Again, I can't answer that because the situation is different now, especially post pandemic travel.
Yeah. And the
And
cost changes per
so
year. So,
exactly. So what I say now will be irrelevant in terms of how my experience was. But there are certain things I can, advise you on if you're looking for a certain, answer to a specific question. I can maybe answer that. But for the most part, everything's online. There are people who have done this journey more recently than I have, because I've already been here for 3 years, and the
mm-hmm.
process has changed since then.
Yeah.
Whereas before, you could just get registered with the GMC with your diploma. Now you need to go through EPIC verification, same as USMLE. So
Mm-hmm.
that's been a major change also. And I wouldn't know how to go through that because I've never had to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So things like that, I think
Mm-hmm.
people just need to be wary of. They need to do their research. There's lots of stuff online. If they need help once they're here getting adjusted, that's easy enough. there's so many of us from the Philippines who have moved here. A lot of the people I used to work with moved here actually. A couple of the residents who are my seniors back home
Yeah.
have moved here and have also asked me what the process is like. So it really makes a difference when you do your research first, because then you know what you're getting involved in,
Mhm.
how much effort it takes. Nothing is easy. Everyone thinks moving to the UK is easier than moving to the US, but I think it differs depending on what you think is difficult and what you think is easy.
That's true.
Um, so yeah, so do the research.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with what you just shared because I do get a lot of questions about USMLE as well, and I also have the same feedback. If it's a question that can be very easily searchable, it's very easily searchable online, then of course it's actually easier for
Mm,
them to just search it online. But if it's a specific question that is not answerable through
yeah,
all these resources that are available already, then I am glad and more than willing to help and get back
exactly.
to those questions. So yeah, I totally agree with that. And actually, one last another question before I end, but
Sure.
how would you how do you love the, I guess, kind of work-life balance, because it's really hard to find that. I'm sure it's difficult everywhere, just being a doctor, and you do have a very busy schedule. But
Mm.
how would you compare the work-life balance as compared to being a doctor in the Philippines? Because that's a big factor, I think, for a lot of doctors who are moving abroad to practice.
I think it's much better work-life balance here, but also it comes at a cost where your training is longer. So for surgery, it takes about, 5 to 8 years, depending on which specialty you're in.
Hmm.
But of course, that means that I don't have to do, 24 hours being stuck in the hospital or 48 hours, just being in the hospital. Like there is a good balance, and there is also the opportunity to do less than full time. So if you want to do 80% of the full work schedule, you can, in order to meet the demands of your health needs or your family needs, things like that. So there are cases where, I've known some seniors here who have taken about 70 to 80% workload so that they can spend more time with their family, and that's a nice option to have. And you
Yeah.
can also take time out of training.
Hmm.
So if you want to put a pause first on training because you feel like you're really stressed out, or you want to focus first on doing a PhD or something like that, you can
Hmm.
take time out of training and then go back when you're ready to complete it. So I think all these options that are available make it more palatable to work
Hmm.
in this kind of context. But then
Hmm.
again, it comes with a cost where you're extending your training period. And I know a lot of people don't like that, but at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how long it takes you. We're all going to end up consultants anyway. So for me, I don't see the need to rush.
Okay. Thank you. So thank you so much for answering all these questions.
No problem.
Yeah, I'm 100% sure like a lot of people probably gained a lot of wisdom and insights through your journey and what you shared. So I appreciate it so much for your time, and I will see you again very soon.